Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Poison Pen Bookstore. My name is Patrick Milliken, and it is a real thrill and an honor to welcome Steve Cavanagh here for his first ever visit to the Poison Pen. Let's give him a nice warm welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. We were talking in the back, and if any of you came to see Adrian McGinty when he was here recently, it's pretty cool. And at first, as far as I'm aware, to have two best-selling thriller novels, Adrian McGinty's book The Chain and Steve's book 13, two best-selling thrillers by writers from Northern Ireland. I mean, that is really cool.
Yeah, there's a few of us get around, and we swap it around. So when Stuart Neville's not on the bestseller list, he gives Adrian and I a chance, and so we share it out. It's only fair.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Since this is your first time here, and can you just tell us a little bit about? We'll get into the book. There's a lot to talk about. Can you just tell us a little bit about your background and where you grew up, and kind of how you got into writing, just the basic intro stuff?
Sure. Okay. Well, I grew up in Belfast. I was born in Belfast in the late 70s, and that was an interesting time to be in Belfast. Most of the place was on fire quite a bit, so it was very warm, but not as warm as this. At the time, I didn't know any better. We were saying earlier on, it's only when you look back at these things you realise how crazy a time it was. There were regular bombings and shootings, and lucky escapes. Thankfully, no one directly in my family or anything was really badly hurt in the Troubles, but it was still a dangerous time. So I went to school in Belfast, and then I graduated. I went to university in Dublin, and I was going to go into business studies and marketing. I sort of became a lawyer by mistake, really, which is my excuse.
This might be a little loud. Let me turn it down just a touch. Or a wee bit, as you would say.
I'm a wee bit loud, which is not an unusual. That's a bit better.
Is that better? Is
that better for everyone? That's not unusual for me to be too loud, I have to say. That's usually my wife's complaint. So I got accepted into university in Dublin, and I got accepted for two courses, business studies and marketing and law, and I could go down and choose whatever course I wanted to do. So me and a few friends went down to Dublin, and it was the first time we thought, we could go out tonight and have a few beers, and probably we won't get murdered, which is an unusual thing. So we did do that, and then when we woke up the next morning, it felt as if we had been murdered, because we had our very first hangovers, and I went down to university with my stuff to register, and I felt awful, and there's thousands of people there, and they're pointing to rooms, and you're given numbers and told to line up and sign things. I just did whatever I was told and then came home. And then I went to my business studies and marketing lectures for 2 weeks quite happily. And then it was time for I had to find where I was in the tutorial groups. Different tutorial groups were all split up, and I couldn't find my name on the notice board. So I went to the lady at the administration desk, and I said, I don't know what tutorial group I'm in. Can you have a look for me? And she said, yeah, I had a look, gave her my name. And she says, you're not doing business studies and marketing, you registered for law? And I said, what? I didn't mean to, kind of swap over. And this was the time when the British government paid me a grant, so they paid all my fees. So they had paid for a year of law, and if I wanted to do business studies and marketing, I would have to take a year out and start again. So I said, well, I'll just do law then. So I became a lawyer because I joined the wrong queue at one stage. But I liked law. It was good fun. And between the age of around 18 or 19, I wrote a few screenplays. I always loved books and reading and movies, but I didn't think I could write a book. Book's 400 pages long. Sorry, thanks. And I thought I couldn't sustain a story over that length of time. Thank you. So what I did was I wrote 2 screenplays, and I managed to get an agent, but I didn't get any of them sold. I did, however, get a rejection from Francis Ford Coppola. He read one of my screenplays, and he rejected it on the grounds that it wasn't Irish enough, despite the fact that I wrote it, and I'm an Irishman, I have a little bit of an accent, as you can tell, and it was set in Ireland. but it wasn't Irish enough.
It wasn't authentic enough.
Yeah, I'm a fake Irishman. So now I'm a fake American.
We were talking in the back about, I was asking him, are there any good movies that really capture the Troubles well? And you said there are precious few.
Very few.
You've seen, yeah.
Very few. And The Name of the Father is probably the only one I can think of. And there's one called 71, which I've heard is really good, but very few. So I gave up writing screenplays because I didn't get any sold, and it was a lot of work. And I continued on merrily as a lawyer then. And I did that for about 15 years. And then my mum passed away quite suddenly. And she was the only person who ever encouraged me to write. So I thought, well, I'm going to try and write a book that she would enjoy. So I wrote my first novel, The Defense. And that's how I got started writing.
Just go back just a little bit. You were talking about when you were growing up and going to Dublin and feeling more comfortable going out on the town. Was it the kind of situation in Belfast where you had to be very careful about which place you went to after dark, depending upon the part of town you were in?
Of course, yeah. There was you could go into the centre of Belfast, but it was getting home. You had to be very careful about getting home, and there was nobody in Belfast at that time. The city was completely dead by 7:30. There were a few wee pubs here and there which would have some people in them, but very few. Now it's totally different. Now it's one of the best European destinations, holiday destinations, so we're told. I can't quite believe it myself, but lots of boats keep arriving and people keep coming to visit. Game of Thrones helped a lot, I think. People like going to see where Game of Thrones was filmed. So, yeah, and Belfast was rough at that time. Looking back, Adrian tells a lot of stories about crazy stuff that happened to him. I remember vividly for about a month, there was an army checkpoint where I had to walk past to go to school, and the same soldier would snipe me with his rifle as I walked to school in my school uniform every day for about a month. And the first time it happened, I was like, what the hell is he doing? And then I forgot about it. It was
part of your everyday life.
Part of your day.
Right.
Like getting on the bus. But looking back on it, yeah, that was a bit crazy.
There's you should all go online and check it out if you haven't. There's a really neat interview where you and Adrian McKinty, have a conversation about, your respective experiences growing up and kind of how it affected you as writers. And you made a really interesting comment when you said something about how you were drawn to the kind of classic loner, outsider, PI figure, because it was somebody who kind of rejected the indoctrination or the mainstream.
Yeah.
How did that kind of fit into?
I'm looking back on it, like my parents, they had a mixed marriage, so my dad's a Protestant, my mum was a Catholic, which wasn't the norm really. If you were lived in a very strong loyalist area or a very strong Catholic area, you could be beaten up or killed for that. But my grandfather was influential, shall we say, in certain areas, and my father wasn't harmed. So yeah, it was a very strange way to live. But because of that, I didn't take to religion. I didn't become bipartisan in my beliefs. To me, Protestants and Catholics are all the same. I sort of rejected religion and that sort of kind of indoctrination which happens. And maybe that's why I became a defense lawyer. I sued the government lots. And the loner PI was very attractive to me. I think all that feeds into my psychology somewhere. That's very insightful.
Well, you said it. I just noticed it. We were talking in the back, and believe me, we'll get to the books here in just a second. But your mother, I understand, at a very impressionable age of 12, gave you a particular gift. And tell us about that and how that kind of shaped your worldview.
Yeah, she gave me a copy of Silence of the Lambs, which she'd read.
I said, isn't that child abuse?
No, I mean, at that time it was, it was light relief. That book, considering where I grew up, it was fine. I loved it. I absolutely loved that book. And that was my gateway into crime fiction. So after that, I read Chandler and Ross MacDonald, John D. MacDonald, and then found my way into Michael Connelly later on, and Lee Child, and that was my way in. So yeah, I'm very grateful for her for giving me that. It opened up a whole new world that I wouldn't otherwise have had. My mum read two types of books. She read dark, violent crime thrillers, and she loved serial killer books. And the other type of fiction she liked was Catherine Cookson novels. I don't know if you know Catherine Cookson. She wrote like romances, Victorian romances, and she wrote about 50 books. They're all the same. It's a lady, and the only thing that changes is the lady on the cover. And it was either somebody who worked in a factory, who was really, landed gentry, or somebody who worked in a house, in a big house somewhere, who fell in love with the Lord and married the Lord, and she just swapped it every other time. So if my mum had given me Catherine Cookson book, I could have been a very different novelist. Because they're very good. It's a great storyteller.
Very class conscious, though, right?
Very class conscious. Oh yeah.
Well, let's get into, this is your 4th published novel, correct?
Yes.
And
it's the 3rd one published in the United States.
Right. There was, we were talking in the back, somebody had a copy of The Liar, which I guess has not been published here yet.
That's right.
Now, forgive my ignorance here, but do all of them feature Eddie Flynn?
Yeah, they all feature Eddie Flynn. It is a series, but the way I've written it, you don't have to read them in any order. They all work as complete standalone novels. You need to know nothing about Eddie Flynn or anything that happened in the other 2 books to pick up this one.
Right. Well, this is my first time reading, and I was like, wow, you really kind of. I could tell that there was a backstory, but you tease in a little bit of his backstory just to satisfy our curiosity. But tell us a little bit, first of all, about this character. He was a former con man, grifter in a sense, who becomes an attorney.
Yeah. Yeah. The series explores the fact that there's not a great deal of difference between these 2 professions of a con artist and a trial lawyer. They all have exactly the same skills.
Larry here's an attorney. I'm sure he would agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, thanks for outing me.
So distraction, manipulation, persuasion. All of these are great skills for a trial attorney to have and for a con artist. And it sort of hit me one day. I cross-examined someone one time, and I sort of tricked them into telling the truth. And it was nothing to do with a law degree or anything like that. I played a bit of a trick on them. And I'm fascinated by what happens in the courtroom and cross-examination, because it's every word used is a weapon. And it's a massive psychological battle with words. And I love that. And when you have something like that happens, it's real. There's no drama like it. When you see it done really well, it's unbelievable. It's almost like a little vignette, and there's always a little twist at the end, because inevitably the witness doesn't see this bombshell, careering over the horizon towards them.
And that comes into jury selection.
Jury selection as well, yeah.
You mentioned in here that there are 3 basic elements to a good hustle that are also successful in cross-examination. There are 3 separate stages. Do you remember what they're?
No idea. Well, there's the setup, the payoff, and the convincer, or something like that.
Right.
A lot of Eddie Flynn comes from me and sort of my style, how I did things, and a few other people. Clarence Darrow was a big influence on Eddie Flynn. Does anyone know who Clarence Darrow is? Darrow was a civil rights attorney, and he practiced, I think, from about 1870 to about 1915, maybe a bit later. And he started off as a labour lawyer. He represented unions. And then he was caught bribing a jury. Now, he never admitted to bribing the jury. He was never prosecuted for bribing a jury. But somebody that worked for Clarence went into the jury room with a bag full of money, and they weren't able to connect it. Clarence said, this guy just did it all on his own, but I'm sure he was bribing that jury. So he was told, well, you're not allowed to practice this law anymore. And he then says, okay, well, I'm going to do murder cases. Now, Darrow historians differ a wee bit, but he did somewhere between 100, maybe 115 capital murder cases. And for a lot of those, he's representing African American defendants who are accused of violence towards Caucasians, and he's got an all-white, all-male jury in the South. And that's real tough.
Atticus Finch kind of
situation. Oh no, not Atticus Finch. Atticus Finch is a really weak lawyer, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
Well, Clarence, out of all those cases, he lost, I think, 3. Now, he was a great orator, there's no doubt about it, he was highly skilled, but he also cheated. And Atticus Finch would never cheat. This is why Atticus, can lose. So one of Darrow's great schemes was when the prosecution called their star witness that day, Darrow, who normally wore black suits, you see pictures of him, he normally wore black suits and white shirts. But on this day, he would wear a beautiful pressed white linen suit. And he would used to smoke foot-long Cuban cigars. And before he went into court, he would thread a lady's hat pin through the center of the cigar. And he would go into court. And he would sit at the defense table. The witness would be called. There's no papers in front of Clarence. He never wrote anything down. He kept it on his head. He was a genius. The only thing in front of him was a beautiful crystal glass ashtray, big one. And Clarence would light up the cigar and smoke. And as the evidence in the case went on, and the evidence got more damning against Clarence's client, the ash on the cigar got longer and longer and longer. And he never tipped the ash into the ashtray. He just let it grow and grow and grow until it was in the hat pin was keeping it all together because it was hot and the ash was hot, so it was like a girder. So, but the jury are sort of nudging each other, going, "Here, look at that!" And the cigar, the ash was so impossibly long, and he's just sitting with it over his beautiful white linen suit. And the jury aren't paying they're not paying no attention to what's happening with the witness. They're all nudging each other and watching Clarence's cigar, just waiting for that sort of Damocles to fall over him. And of course, it never fell. But they never heard all the damning prosecution evidence either.
It's genius.
Isn't it? Yeah. So Eddie's like that. Eddie will always do the wrong thing for the right reasons. Eddie is not above breaking the laws as long as he is doing it. And he has a very strong moral code. He doesn't represent people that he thinks are really guilty. They want to use him to get off. He is kind of on the right side, but always doing the wrong thing on the right side.
Well, this book is fascinating the way it's set up because, it tells you right on the darn cover of the book, the serial killer isn't on trial, he's on the jury.
Yeah.
And tell us about that. How did you come up with the concept of sort of revealing to the reader the basic setup of what's going to happen? I mean, there's a lot of surprises, but
yeah, there's a lot more to it than just that
yes,
premise.
Right.
So that's why that was my outline for the book. When I was writing my first book, I had this idea. I'm always thinking, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I thought, well, if you had a serial killer who worked his way into the jury, that would be pretty bad. And I talked about my wife, and she said, yeah, that's a good idea. So I know very little about writing. I don't do any outlines. I write very instinctually, but I know suspense. And that's what I'm all about. These are they're not legal procedural books that I write. I'm writing suspense novels. And my go-to is always Hitchcock's bomb theory. If any of you know that. So Hitchcock's bomb theory is an audience is in a theater and they're watching Hitchcock on the screen. And Hitchcock's sitting across the table from a guy and they're talking about baseball. They talk about baseball for 2 minutes and then there's a huge explosion and they're both dead. And the audience goes for a couple of seconds with shock. Hitchcock's theory is, well, suspense is better. So what he preferred is 2 minutes before Hitchcock sat down with the guy to talk about baseball, somebody else comes in and plants a bomb under the table and the audience sees this and then leaves. And then Hitchcock and the guy come in and they're talking about baseball. And for the whole 2 minutes they're talking about baseball. The audience is gripping the seat going, don't stop talking about baseball, there's a bomb under the table. So there's the full 2 minutes of that and it builds and builds and builds and then the explosion. And the perfect example of...
Very Irish, by the way.
Yeah, it is Irish. That's an Irish thing. Yeah. The perfect example of Hitchcock's Bond theory is Jaws. Jaws is the perfect suspense movie because it starts off with that shark, and you don't see it. But you know there's a dirty great shark in the water, and it eats people. So as soon as anyone in that movie goes near the sea or puts a toe near the sea, you're tense, you're gripping, because that's it. There's another bomb under the table.
Well, and the music is so brilliant.
And the
too,
music is awesome.
because you know, dun dun. It'll just be like a mellow one at first. You know, he's kind of in the general vicinity, but he's not right here yet.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
So that's that tagline. I'm putting the shark in the water on page 1.
And you know, the point of view, and I'm notorious for giving spoilers, and I'm not going to do it tonight. But the point of view is really interesting because you go back and forth between your villain, who we'll talk about, and that's a third person point of view, and then Eddie Flynn, which is first person.
Yeah.
And did you kind of start it out that way, or did that kind of narrative approach kind of come during the course of writing?
No, I deliberately set out to do it because the first 3 novels that I wrote in the series, it's Eddie first person, almost the entire book. There's no other points of view, and I felt I wasn't really getting my villains as well as I could do. By being limited, because you can only see the villain through Eddie's eyes, and it's particularly hard to do when maybe you don't know who the real villain is. So, but this one I wanted to have a view from the villain, but I didn't want to lose Eddie's first person voice, so I wanted to keep that as well. So I sort of set out to write it as if there's 2 heroes. There's Cain, who's the hero of his own story, and Eddie. And at some stage their paths cross. They're both on opposite missions, but Eddie doesn't really know about Cain for a long time.
Cain's kind of the rebel angel.
Yeah,
You know.
he kind of is. So he's, and actually some readers have said to me they were almost rooting for Cain, you know, as during his evil plans and what he does. Because he can be quite charming at times. So it was a lot of fun to write. And of course the other thing about this, the structure which was tricky was, yes, Joshua Cain is trying to get on the jury, but you don't know which jury member he is. That is kept from you, but you know he's there. It's like the little dun dun. Yeah.
Well, since nobody here has read the book yet, right? Right, so we can't, you have, okay. No spoilers.
No spoilers.
All right. What can you tell them about the basic kind of setup without giving too much away?
Okay. Well, Eddie Flynn gets sort of roped into representing a upcoming Hollywood movie star called Bobby Solomon. Bobby's been arrested and put on trial for the murder of his new wife and his head of security. They're both found murdered in their Manhattan home.
Compromising position.
In compromising position, indeed. And Eddie's roped into representing this young man. And that's one side of the story. And the other side of the story is there is a man called Joshua Cain, and he is going through a very detailed plan and process to manipulate his way onto the jury for that Bobby Solomon trial. But you don't know why he's doing this. And when I was thinking of Cain, he has an interesting medical condition. He has something called congenital analgesia, which is a real condition, and it's quite prevalent in certain parts of Norway, and there's a few cases in the United States as well. But what it means is the pain receptors in his brain don't work, so he has never ever felt pain, doesn't know what pain is, and is kind of fascinated by it, and that feeds into his psychology.
Yeah, because it sounds like, you know, sign me up, I'd like to have that, you know, but it's not all good.
It's not all good, no, because I mean, pain is the body's early warning system. It tells you when you've got cuts or when you've got an infection or when something else is wrong. So in some ways it is a real handicap as well for him. But I did a lot of research about serial killers, most of which isn't in the book, but it was fascinating. I had so many illusions spoiled by doing the research. The FBI will tell you on their website there are about 50 serial killers operating in the United States right and I sort of was surprised by that. And then the lawyer part of my brain kicked in, and I thought, I wonder, is that right? And I looked at it more closely, and it's not right.
Sounds conservative.
Yeah, it is a wee bit conservative. So their information is based on their system called VICAP, the Violent Criminals Apprehender Program, and that's a database which has violent crimes from all over the United States, and they can see. The idea is they can see if there's crimes which are related or similar characteristics. The problem with that is it's not compulsory for law enforcement to complete a VICAP form for a violent crime. Some precincts have never completed a VICAP form, and it's no criticism of any police officers. It takes about 3 hours to complete the form. It's 150 really detailed questions. So there's a couple of different groups of people who have looked at this. One of them, very interesting, made up a group of psychologists and criminologists and database people. And what they did is they got the homicide statistics for individual states and counties, because the only person who decides if there's been a homicide is either the medical examiner or the coroner. They write homicide down on the death record, and that has to be recorded by law. So they got all of those statistics, and they fed it into an algorithm, and they put some of these things on a map. And the first thing that happened is they caught a serial killer that nobody knew about. I think it was in Washington. There was an area of about 10 city blocks, which there was an intersection there of 3 different police precincts, and about 8 women had been strangled over a period of 10 years in different police precincts, and the precincts weren't talking to each other. So they caught it, and they estimate from looking at all these figures that there's probably about 2,000 serial killers operating in the US right now, or haven't been caught, which is really scary. It's about 40 per state. But of course it doesn't work out like that, because there's only about 40 people in Alaska, and they can't all be serial killers.
Wyoming.
Or Wyoming, yeah. Maybe they are all in serial killers in Wyoming.
That would be a fun book, wouldn't it? Yeah. C.J. Box could write it. Well, when we meet Eddie, you know, your protagonist, really, he is at an interesting point in his life, and you know, this is also backstory that I'm assuming we talk about in previous books, but he's kind of separated from his wife and his 10-year-old daughter.
Yeah. And
from what I read from reading the book, it's because he's working these really high-profile, kind of dangerous cases that put them at risk.
Yes.
Partly, anyway.
Yeah.
What drives him? What drives Eddie? You know, there's this sort of conflict between this obsessive, his job, but also throughout the book, he's like, you know, I really need to, you know, become like a nice country attorney and become Matlock essentially, and slow down a little bit, but he can't do it. You know?
Yeah, that's the sort of the conflict that Eddie has in all of the books. When we meet Eddie in the first novel, he hasn't practiced law for about a year. And again, not giving any real spoilers here, but it gives you a bit of the background to it. Eddie had represented someone, and he sort of knew before the verdict came in, this guy has conned me and wasn't paying attention, he's really guilty. And he got him off. And after that, this guy hurt someone. And Eddie then tracked the guy down, and I'll not tell you what happened, but that has really hugely affected him. And he feels as if he's kind of on a path to redemption. He now he realizes, you know, I have a talent here, I can help people, and that's what he wants to do at great personal cost. And because he's trying, I think, to fulfill that, to get some kind of salvation from and make up for this mistake, he has a conflict of, well, what he's doing is affecting his family. So he's almost sacrificing himself for others in a way, which is, you know, you'll see that to a greater or lesser extent in a lot of crime fiction. You know, I hear voices crying in the night and I go see what's the matter. That type of thing, the Lee Archer type of scenario.
Yeah, the detective doesn't work the case works the detective. That whole thing. There's also, he has kind of a mentor figure, Harry.
Yeah,
You
Harry
talk about
Ford.
him? Yeah, he's great.
Harry Ford's a lot of fun, yeah. Harry is a judge. I have him in Harry's history. He was one of the youngest ever African American army captains in Vietnam. And he joined up at a very young age when he was too young to be there. So he's kind of a tough old warrior, Harry, but incredibly smart, and an old civil rights veteran as well. And he's kind of taken Eddie under his wing. To say, look, here's, you know, a bad guy who has, there's some good in him, and he's fallen hard times, and Harry just sort of kind of looks after him. But there's also kind of a wicked side to Harry, where he loves getting in trouble with Eddie, and he kind of enjoys that, and it sort of gives him his buzz, and maybe keeps him alive and keeps him fresh, you know. He's a right old age now. But I love writing the scenes with Eddie and Harry, because they do have a lot of fun together. And they try to look after each other, so I enjoy that.
Now, a lot in this book, of course, deals with a particular high-profile case. And I mentioned a little bit before about how you get into sort of the intricacies and the nuances of the whole jury selection process.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, you know, just for the layperson.
Well, jury selection is different all over the world. It's even changed in the United Kingdom now. It used to be you would get some personal details about potential jurors. Now you don't. It's just you just get a number. Someone pulls a number literally out of a hat, and a juror steps forward. In America, it's different. In certain high-profile litigation, where the lawyers have a lot of money to play with, they will heavily investigate the jurors, the potential juror pool. They'll have profiles done on them all, and they will have worked out and ran fake trials with potential jurors, with actors playing these potential jurors, to map out, well, what's our verdict going to be, and how is this all playing out with this. And it's a lot of it, there are jury consultants even, and there's one in this book, and they specialize in picking the correct, or helping the lawyers at least to try to pick the correct jury, so the jury will hear and understand, and be willing to understand and hear their case. And there, of course, then there's all sorts of plays can be made by the other side, because they'll say, well, that's the juror we really don't want. How do we get rid of them? Yeah. And the best way to do that is to get your opponent to mess up and get rid of them, and then you haven't wasted a challenge. So that's a whole psychological chess game going on before the trial's even started.
Yeah, there's an attorney in the book that's sort of like the celebrity, the lawyer to the stars.
Yeah.
This guy named Rudy Karp, and he approaches Eddie to be second chair. A very strategic move.
Yeah.
But he invites him into this very kind of exclusive, very Tony law office. The whole thing was, and you see these mock trials taking place.
That's right.
You know, them trying to work out their strategy going into this big case. Did you witness, observe some cases like that?
Yeah, I've spent a bit of time in that court building, in the Manhattan Criminal Court building, watching a few cases, and it's always a lot of fun. And I always get little details. For example, Eddie plays a con at the start of the book. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it involves room 1000 in the court building, and all of that's real. You could definitely make that work. That con would work totally. But I'm not going to tell you any more about that. But there are some things I witnessed in the court, and I think I was writing them down in my notebook going, I could never use these because no one would believe me. I watched one trial, and it was kind of like a semi-mafia trial, and the judge never sat down. The judge had a standing desk, and he just walked up and down during the cross-examination. And when he didn't like what he was hearing, or he thought the lawyer was going off on a tangent, he would turn his back to the lawyer and fold his arms and roll his eyes and go, for God's sake, and march back and forth and huff and stamp his feet. I thought,
theatrical.
Very theatrical. I thought, no one, if I put this in a book, no one would believe me. Everyone would go, a judge would never behave like that. But of course they do. quite often. Judges are very badly behaved on some occasions. So,
Larry, you agree with me?
Well, in fact, it happens at the highest court in the land. It's very customary for Supreme Court justices, if they're unhappy with the way a lawyer is presenting something, to turn their chair and turn their back to the lawyer.
yeah,
Very common.
yeah.
Yeah, Larry's done, we can't say anything, of course, but some real high-profile cases and things. Is there anything that you can say? No, because we're being taped.
We're being taped.
We'll
It's all
talk
on
after.
tape,
We'll
Larry.
talk after.
Nobody wants to hear from me.
You
We
told
want to
me
hear
some-
from Steve.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll open up to questions in just a second, but I wanted to get into a little bit more about this villain of yours.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the influence of Silence of the Lambs and that kind of villain. You know, somebody. You know, one of the things that at least I found most terrifying about someone like Hannibal Lecter, you know, despite obviously what they do and they eat people, but just the fact that he's his brilliant intellect. And part of the thing about the film, I have not read the book, I'm embarrassed to say, but I'm going to. It's just that kind of, those two, they're squaring off, him and Clarice Starling, matching intellectually. And one of the things that's we were talking in the back about these little details that really stick out. And one of the things in my mind about Silence of the Lambs, do you remember that scene where they're transferring, I think, Hannibal Lecter, and he is so dangerous and such a badass that they don't even trust him to walk. They like bolt him into this like cart and take him, and I found that little detail so terrifying about him. And you were mentioning another one kind of like that.
Yeah, there's a bit in Red Dragon where Francis Dollarhide, he's working out. He's massively overdeveloped, and he does a lot of bench presses and develop his physique. But one of the things he does is he chews a little rubber ball for about half an hour so he can strengthen his jaw muscles to bite people harder, and that really freaked me out. But
He's got to train.
yeah,
Get his game going.
it's funny. I mean, you have to be so careful with these things. There's not. Well, I wouldn't say there's any real gore in this book. It's not a really violent book, despite what Marilyn Stasio said in the New York Times. She said it was graphically violent.
There's the suggestion of it.
There's a suggestion of it, and it's up to the reader then to interpret that. The only real scenes of violence are the violence that Cain does to his own body. There is a scene where he breaks his own nose, which was so much fun to write, I have to say. It was great fun, because I had to work out, if you were going to break your own nose, how the hell would you do it? And it was great. I'll never have to break my own nose, but if I'm ever in a pinch, in a situation where I have to break my own nose now, I can do it quite safely.
Well, in the beginning of the book, you know, it's not giving anything away. He kind of orchestrates this little con where he gets into the post office van by putting his hand and forcing the guy to slam the door on his hand.
That's right. He's very, very manipulative. He is part of the 1%. And this is really, the FBI have got this right. Most serial killers are kind of stupid. They're not, you know, when they're caught on the TV, you hear the neighbors saying, oh, he was so quiet, he was so nice, never had any bother with him, he was so lovely, and he lived with his mother for so many years, very keen gardener, up digging big holes in the garden at 5 o'clock in the morning, but, you know, he was, you know, and it's normally the sort of the indiscreet, you know, the people who are, they're not setting the world on fire, these people, but there is a 1% of them who are highly intelligent and really manipulative. The likes of Ed Kemper. Have you ever seen Mindhunter or read the book?
Yeah, that just came up. Yeah, I was watching it with my wife and that name came up. Yeah.
Kemper is he was vastly intelligent and also terrifying. He was like 6'8" or something and 500 pounds. He was a monster and super smart. And the only reason he was caught was he gave himself up. And the FBI said, if you didn't do that, we never would have caught you. So it's tapping into that, you know. So it's entirely possible there are people like this out there.
Well, and there's some really revealing scenes from this character Cain as a little boy, you know, and how he, you know, his mom, I can't remember exactly what happens to him, but he has to go to the hospital a couple times, and he's just like Spock. He feels no pain, but he kind of digs his mom's fear.
Yeah.
And that's when things get a little creepy.
Yeah, that was the great opportunity I had by being able to write from his point of view. That I could go in and make him so. It's a book where you see who this person is, but I wanted the reader to have a real good understanding of how he came to be that way and exactly what he's doing. Because it makes him all the more real. And the more real he is, the more frightening he is.
Now, I'll open it up to questions. But I wanted to ask you, you're not the only Irish writer who, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't written about Ireland. Does that, have you?
I have done one short story set in Belfast for Belfast Noir by Kashik Books.
Yeah.
I wrote a short story set in Belfast, but I've never written a novel set in Ireland.
Does that interest you, or is it just...
Not really, I have to say. John Connelly has never written a novel set in Ireland. John writes the Charlie Parker mysteries and loads more, the Laurel Hardy book, and young adult stuff. John writes everything. He's kind of annoying us now because he's writing so much. You give us somebody else a chance, John. No, but I love John. He's a good friend and an incredible writer. And in many ways, I wouldn't be a writer without reading his stuff, I have to say. But John's never written one, so I don't know. I wouldn't say no. But it's not on my immediate horizon. I have 2 books out next year, and they're not set in Ireland.
Are they set here in the States?
Yeah, I can tell you about them if you like.
Please, yeah.
So the one out in February is a standalone. It's not an Eddie Flynn. I love psychological thrillers. I've been reading a lot of Patricia Highsmith recently. Love Patricia Highsmith. And
nobody wrote about twisted obsession the way she did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she was a big influence for this book, and Stephen King's Misery. And a lot of these psychological thrillers have done really well. So Gone Girl, The Girl on the Train, Silent Patient, stuff like that. I love all those books, so I wanted to write a novel about those books. So my book is called Twisted, and the background is it's about the world's greatest mystery writer, a man called J.T. LeBeau, who sold 75 million copies of his novels all around the world. He's the master of the twist, and no one knows who he is. No one's met him.
Is this like J.T. Leroy?
That's a little nod and a wink to J.T. Leroy, yes. And there's another Italian writer who had a pseudonym and pen name for a long time. But no one's ever met J.T. LeBeau. No one knows what he looks like. No one's ever seen a picture of him. And the mystery behind the pen name sort of fuels the press around his books and helps them. So the book starts with a lady called Maria Cooper, who's in a new marriage, hasn't gone very well, money's tight, she's having an affair, and she opens her husband's desk drawer one day and sees a bank statement in it with $20 million in an account in the name of J.T. LeBeau. And she thinks her husband is J.T. LeBeau, and he's been keeping the secret from her. And the first twist in the book happens before the book even begins. It'll have my name on the cover, Steve Cavanagh, Twisted. Then you'll open it up and there's a fake title page. It says Twisted by J.T. LeBeau. And then there's a note from J.T. LeBeau. So you're reading the entire book as if you're reading a J.T. LeBeau novel.
Very postmodern.
Very postmodern. A wee bit meta, but it's fun. It works. It's a book about unreliable narrators written by an unreliable narrator.
That sounds fantastic.
And it's just full of twists. Because I love twists, so I thought, look, the bloody book's called Twisted, I'm really going to go for it here. And it's a lot of fun. So that's out in February. In August, it's the sequel to 13. So we're back with Eddie Flynn, and it's a book called 50/50. And 50/50 starts off with a 911 call. This woman called Alexandra calls 911 and says, "Oh my God, I've just found my father in his bedroom. He's been murdered. My sister's killed him. I think she still has a knife, and I think she's still in the house. I've locked myself in the bathroom. Please get here quick." And then there's another 911 call from a lady called Sophia, who says, oh my God, I've just found my father murdered in his bedroom. I think my sister Alexandra's killed him. She might still have a knife. I'm running out of the house, please get here quick. So both sisters are blaming each other for the murder, and they're both put on trial at the one time. The one trial with both of them blaming each other. And Eddie's representing one sister, and it's a new character called Kate Brooks who's representing the other sister. And those are the 2 points of view in the novel. There's a third point of view, which is simply known as she. And the she has planned this entire thing from the beginning, has planned to be arrested with her sister, and has thought all this out from the very start. And it's one of the sisters, but you don't know which one.
Are they twins to boot?
They're not twins.
That
No.
sounds amazing.
So that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. Well, let's open it up to questions. Anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask?
Well, will you be back to sign this too?
I hope so. if you'll have me back. If I'm not barred before the end of the evening,
Absolutely.
I'd love to.
Why is Liar not published in the United States before this book?
Okay. So, The Liar's the third book in the series. And it took a while for me to break out in the United Kingdom. And my American publisher are behind the United Kingdom. So, for example, Twisted is out now in the United Kingdom, came out this year, and 50/50 will be out in around January time in Ireland and Australia. Anyway, so 13 broke out in the UK, before the other ones. To give you an idea, The Plea, which is my last published book in the United States, in the United Kingdom, The Plea sold 751 copies. 13 is now sold, I think we're getting on for 250,000 copies. Bit of a difference. So, and now people are going back to the backlist and things are all working out. And I think my American publishers thought, well, we want to break you out first, and this is the book to do it, and then we can come back to The Liar. But as the series isn't really written, you don't have to read it in order. I don't think it suffers. But The Liar's a good book. It won the Crown Writers' Gold Dagger. So,
It's probably a smart move, really.
yeah, could be.
Yeah.
We'll see how it works.
So
Yeah.
order it from Great Britain or wait till you publish it?
These guys will get it for you. You order it here. They can do something here.
So, Twisted's already out in the UK?
Yeah.
Blimey. I'm going to get some. Order some of those.
Yeah.
Did you happen to sign any of Goldsboro?
No, I didn't know.
No.
Because I do paperbacks in the UK.
Okay, they're not hardcovers.
Did you say you signed? You sold how many of The Plea in Great Britain?
751.
Wow, I got 100.
Cool.
Yeah.
You got one of them? Yeah. I sold 750 and that one that you got.
How about yeah? You signed them originally for Goldsboro, right?
I did, yeah. I signed the Plea and the defense for Goldsboro, not The Liar.
That's right.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I noticed in your acknowledgments at the end of 13, you didn't mention any attorneys. Did you work with attorneys, or are you a member of the bar in the United States? Because legal trials obviously can be very complicated.
Yeah, no, I do all my own research. Up until 3 months ago, I was a lawyer in Ireland and the UK. But since 13 success, I've quit. I'm now a recovering lawyer, which is the best type. But no, I do all my own legal research. And if I'm really unsure about something, there's someone I can call or email. But typically I do a ton of legal research and then I leave all of it out. Because I'm writing, I want you to turn the page. I only need enough for you to understand what's going on. And I'm more interested in the psychology of what's happening in the courtroom rather than the legal procedurals. But for some things there does have to be explanations, because there could be lawyers reading about going, oh, how would that happen? Oh yeah, that would happen that way. So there has to be that to give it some credibility. But I strip it down to as the least amount that I can get away with, because I find legal procedural boring, I have to tell you. I'm a lawyer, so I'm much more interested in the drama and the story.
Do you find that when you read some legal thrillers, you say, yes, that's not how this works?
No, I don't have to say no. I'll always, if someone gets a procedural thing wrong or something like that, I don't care. It doesn't annoy me as long as the story's good. It doesn't annoy me, but it really impresses me when someone gets it right. Like Michael Connelly's Lincoln Lawyer series is phenomenal, and Michael gets everything absolutely perfectly correct. And the cross-examination scenes from Mickey Haller are really fun and really accurate. And while I'm reading those books, I'm thinking, along with Mickey Haller, I'm thinking 2 or 3 questions ahead. I go, I know exactly where you're going with this, and he's brilliant.
Anybody else? How about TV or Hollywood interest? Have you sold it for big bucks yet?
Well, there hasn't been an announcement.
That's a yes.
Just between us. Just between us.
Yeah, sure.
No, leave it. It's fine. What are they going to do? Sue me? No. I'm working with 2 companies at the moment to bring it to American TV. And they're 2 good companies. Yeah, one is a bunch of Oscars, the other company is a bunch of Emmys and BAFTAs. So they're really, really good. But I can't tell you any more about that. There will be an official announcement, hopefully soon.
So the deal's done? Yeah. Kind of, sort of. Moving in that direction.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent.
I've signed things.
There's a check here.
There was a check.
Okay. Congratulations. That's
Thanks very much.
Yeah, you're able to quit your day job.
Yeah, well, that wasn't what helped me quit the day job. It was this book.
It's the book, yeah. Fantastic.
So it's fun.
Before we sign off, anything that you're reading that you're really enjoying lately?
Yeah, I've read a lot I'm reading Meg Gardner's Unsub at the moment, which I'm really, really enjoying. I got it a while ago, and I read the first chapter, and I thought, I'm really going to love this. And when I get a book like that, what I do is I put it down, and I say, I'm going to save that for a time when I can I'm not so busy, and I can just sit and just mow through that. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I read Chandler Baker's The Whisper Network, which was really fun. That's a book about the Me Too movement. What else have I read? A British writer called Howard Linsky. His new one called The Disappearance of Alice Teal, or Alice Teal is Missing, which I've really enjoyed. I've just been reading these on tour. The Chain, of course. Stuart Neville's new one, which is under the Helen Beck name, which is called Lost You. That's a brilliant novel.
So good.
He is brilliant. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying these books now. So
Patricia Highsmith too, right?
Highsmith, yeah, I'm working my way through her. But that's what I'm trying to do. The last couple of years, I'm reading whatever new stuff I can, but then I'm going back to classics that I really enjoy, or that I haven't read that I've missed, and then going through them.
Do you have a favorite Highsmith?
I think
so far,
the Talent of Mr. Ripley just gets me. I think it's an amazing feat that she's so economical with her prose, and she makes you fall in love with this monster and be rooting for him.
Yeah.
That's just absolutely superb.
I love a lot of her oddball standalones too, like The Cry of the Owl.
Oh, I've not read that one.
Edith's Diary. And, there's so many of them.
She's brilliant. My wife is reading her. My wife's good friends with Denise Mayne, as am I. And on Denise's recommendation, she got Highsmith's biography.
Oh yeah.
So I've got that to read. She was a very strange.
Very unpleasant towards the end of her life too.
She kept snails as pets in her handbag. Snails. She kept them in her handbag and in her brassiere. She would walk around. These were her pets. And there was an incident where she was at a dinner party and she wanted to leave, but she was too embarrassed not to say, look, I just want to go, or make up an excuse. So she leaned over and set her hair on fire on the candle on the table, and then she had a perfect excuse to leave. She was quite strange, but an absolutely brilliant, so gifted as a writer.
There was one called This Sweet Sickness. Have you ever read that?
Ah, yes, I have. And her book, have you read her book about writing suspense?
Yeah.
It's only a little bit, but it's brilliant.
So everybody read Patricia Highsmith. You're in for a big treat. Yeah,
Yeah.
she doesn't get the press that she deserves.
No, she doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, I digress. We have a question.
If I can put in for one of my favorite authors, which actually drew me here tonight, because when I saw the review and it said Irish writer, I was like, I love Tanya French.
Yes.
And I love the stories about, you know, Dublin and the culture and the socioeconomic as well as the psychological. She doesn't get to the trial part, but I just think it's fascinating. So I don't know if she's someone you read, or if you don't read anything.
Yeah, no, I have read some Tana French, and there's no doubt she's a really good writer. She is a really good writer. I think she's originally American, but she's lived for a long time in Dublin. She's lived long enough now that Dublin has claimed her as their own,
Oh, really?
which happens sometimes. If you're really good or really talented, and you have a distant Irish relative, or you had a pint of Guinness once, you can play for the Irish football team as long as you're good. That type of thing. So the same with writers. Just really go, yeah, we'll have her.
Well, the Irish have a very their tax thing for writers. Is that still?
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as lucrative as it used to be, but yes, you get a lot of tax breaks if
For being
you're
an
an artist and you live in Ireland, which is why you two have a lot of hotels in Ireland, and various other people still say they live in Ireland, but they don't really.
Right. I remember going there and seeing, and I was there in 1999, and they still had the Irish pound, the Irish currency.
Yeah.
I don't think they do anymore, do they?
No, they have the euro now.
But
Euro.
But I saw, on the 10 punt note, it was James Joyce, and I said, this is the right place.
Yeah.
You got an artist on their currency. It's
Exactly.
pretty cool.
Yeah. No, Ireland are very, very fond of their artists.
Yeah. Well, Steve, it's been a real treat to have you here tonight.
Thank you. It's
so
been
much.
great.
Congratulations on the book and all your success.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. It's been brilliant.